Good morning. The time is 10:10, and we're going to get started with today's meeting. I want to just note today we do not have a quorum. We'll be joined in a little bit by Commissioner Polanco, but even with Commissioner Polanco, we won't have a quorum. So today we'll do hearings on 3 proposed rules, but we will not take a vote because we don't have the required number of members necessary for a vote. So let me just start the chair's report with an update on our commuter van pilot. This is something we started in November, piloting for those vans that choose to put a decal on the side of their vehicle. It says NYC Commute, and it mirrors the branding that's on yellow taxis and green taxis. And the focus of the program was to elevate for passengers an awareness on what a legal commuter van is versus an illegal, and for those drivers and owners of legal licensed commuter vans, a sense of pride and being part of the TLC licensed community. So they also have now branding that looks a lot like the other vehicles that we license. It's a voluntary program, and since we've started, we've had amazing interest in it. There's now 34 licensed commuter van authorities who are part of the program, and that means about 70% of our commuter vans now bear this decal, which is voluntary, and as you can tell, it's probably quickly going to become a rule since we've got so much overwhelming support for the pilot. The other update is on February 5th, TLC, along with Cab Riders United, on a very, very cold morning, stood outside Grand Central and handed out flyers reminding passengers about the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit and what the passenger's role is in sort of encouraging everybody to adhere to it. Drivers, understandably, are often encouraged by their passengers to go faster, go faster. So we were out there with Cab Riders United to really let the public know that we all play a role in making our streets safer. We're drivers or we're passengers. And if we're passengers, we should tip for safety. So give 25% tip to your cab driver for staying at the speed limit, 25 or under. And when you're talking about what you qualify as a good driver, remember it's safety, not speed, because the price of speed is just too high. Now, some people were very interested and took flyers, and I think it's an encouraging sign of awareness among passengers and people in general of the Mayor's Vision Zero initiative. So we'll be out again, hopefully not quite as cold day. Maybe we'll pick something a little warmer, but we'll be out again with flyers and anywhere where there's taxi stands to remind passengers of this important message. And finally, on December 16th, we received a petition for rulemaking, which would seek to compel the in-taxi technology to be available for Wi-Fi and include charging ports. The Commission considered the rulemaking and has rejected it. We sent the proposal to all the commissioners so they're aware of our decision, and that was done on February 4th, 2015. Okay, with that, because we do not have a quorum, we will not do an adoption of the minutes or review base applications. We'll go straight to our hearings, and we have 3 rules today for public hearing. One is, and Chris will give sort of the formal description of each, but the first one is a rule about stickers. Would require on the inside of the taxi a sticker reminding riders of driver protections and the state criminal laws that protect drivers who are assaulted. And this has, well, this is 2015, but 2014 was not a great year for drivers. There was 2 horrendous deaths and several attacks on drivers. So we're pleased that City Council passed a law requiring these in TLC licensed vehicles, and we're pleased today to propose rules that will make it a reality. An unfortunate reality, but a reality and an important reminder for everybody in taxi cabs and liveries and black cars and limos, paratransits, and I think that's it. Commuter vans too, and green cabs. The next rule is FHV dispatch rule. It does two things. It clarifies that in cross-class dispatching, it would not be considered cross-class dispatch for a limo company to dispatch to a black car company and vice versa. They're members of the same workers' compensation fund and have traditionally been sort of lumped together in a class of vehicles. And then the second piece that rule does, the proposal does, is to clarify that a binding fare quote is required for passengers who provide a destination in the livery world, whether or not that call or that request is initiated by telephone or by an app. And then finally, it's a street hail livery roof light rule to clarify that if you take your meter out of your street hail livery, the light on the top must immediately extinguish. And that's simply for street hail liveries that are in the exclusionary zone. On the rare occasion, but it does happen, that somebody takes their meter out in order for the light to look like to the passengers that they are available. That will no longer be possible. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris Wilson, and we'll do hearings on each rule in order. So just come up for the rule that you were signed up for, and Chris will call out your name ahead of time.
Okay, so the first rule for public hearing today is a rule that does two things. First, it implements Local Law 55 of 2014, requiring TLC licensed vehicles to have a sticker warning the public of penalties for assaulting a driver. The second thing this rule does is it requires taxis and other licensed vehicles which have hearing loop technology to assist passengers who are hard of hearing to have a decal identifying that the vehicle is equipped with that technology. The first speaker for this rule is Janice Schachter-Lintz.
And I apologize, Janice, in my introduction, I spoke so much about the driver protection, I did not mention the important other purpose of the proposed rule to raise awareness about the hearing loop that's in every taxi of tomorrow.
Thanks. Hello, my name is Janice Schachter-Lintz, and I am the CEO of Hearing Access and Innovations, formerly known as the Hearing Access Program, which spearheaded the Hearing Induction Loop project with the Taxi and Limousine Commission about 11 years ago. I am also the mother of a now 20-year-old daughter who is hard of hearing. I am confining my comments solely to hearing accents since I do not have the expertise to weigh in on the other issues. I applaud, and I mean applaud, the TLC for installing induction loops for people who are hard of hearing. New York City is the very first city in this country to add hearing induction loops to its taxis for people who are hard of hearing and for hire vehicles such as taxis. I also fully support the proposed rule, which I will not read every single rule, to add hearing induction loop signage both inside and outside the taxis and other vehicles, which is consistent with the pilot project. The above rules are critical. Passengers are unaware of hearing induction loops' existence, or even if the person is aware of the loop's presence, they don't know which vehicle contains them. I was a member of the Taxi of Tomorrow committee, and even I had difficulty determining which taxi had the loop on when NBC reporter Contessa Brewer interviewed me. The proposed rules recommend the following signage of the ear with a slash and the T in the lower right-hand corner, which we commend. The symbol was affixed originally on the pilot program to the inside and outside of the taxis, and this symbol should be consistently added to the current taxis with hearing induction loops to both inside and outside the taxis. This is consistent with New York City Transit subway information booths and call boxes. This symbol is used by museums, theaters, banks, and retail shops that have hearing induction loops around New York City and the world. In my comments that I submitted to the commission, I've documented photographs with arrows to demonstrate this. It is also the international symbol for hearing induction loops. Using the international symbol will benefit tourists who visit our city and who are familiar with the loop from their country or their travels. It is critical that the TLC use the globally recognized symbol for hearing induction loops. We hope the Commission will support the proposed rules so that people who are hard of hearing will be aware of the hearing induction loop's existence and presence. The loops cannot be used if passengers who are hard of hearing are unaware it exists and do not know which vehicle contains it. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of installing the loop. It will also benefit drivers who have a hearing loss and allow them to continue working, which we can all agree, keeping people employed is a good thing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Jerry Bergman.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity today, and especially thanks to the Commission for taking this initiative. I am a severe, profoundly impaired person with hearing loss. I wear both a cochlear implant and a hearing aid, and I cannot tell you how enthusiastic the Hearing Loss Association of America's New York chapter appreciates what you're doing. The problem we have is not only communicating in public, but being aware of access for communicating when we have hearing loss. We wear telecoils in our hearing aids, but unless a facility is looped, as the taxis will hopefully be on the streets, we have no way of communicating in many situations. I'd like to read you a letter quickly that I just received via email, which was sent to the Commission. I'm profoundly hard of hearing and wear 2 hearing aids with T-switches. Installing audio loops in the taxis would make it possible for me to hear and understand drivers. Recently, I asked the driver to take me to the east side of Manhattan. Although he repeated my instructions, I did not hear him say west side. I realized he had not understood me only when he stopped at Amsterdam instead of Park Avenue. I would have been able to hear him and correct his mistake if there was an audio loop in the car. I want to add that there are an estimated 1.6 million people in New York City with hearing loss. Not all of them have hearing aids, not all of them wear T-coils in their hearing aids. There are also 10.8 million people, we estimate, who have hearing loss who come as visitors to our city every year. The fact that you will be putting decals, we hope, on the outside and the inside of the vehicles will not only help those with T-coils today to communicate with the drivers, but will also signal that this technology exists, because many people who are fitted for hearing devices are not told about the telecoil and how it works. So following the lead of the New York City subway system, this is the second major step for New York City in the right direction for the invisible disability which hearing loss is. I commend you all for that. And the Hearing Loss Association stands ready, I stand ready to consult and assist in any way we can. I heard the commissioners, the chair rather, speak about your educational efforts. Anything we can help you do to get the word out about the accessibility of loop taxis as they come on the streets, we'll be more than happy to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Arrington Sell.
Good morning, Chairwoman Joshi. Commissioners, my name is Arrington Sell. I'm the Managing Director of the Legal Mutual Taxi Owners. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. LAMTO supports all efforts to provide service to the hearing impaired public and inform them with hearing induction loop decals. And LAMTO also supports the proposed TLC rules to require a sticker to inform passengers that assaulting a driver is punishable by up to 25 years in prison. It will help protect taxi drivers. There's no doubt about that. I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank Councilmember Landsman and his colleagues in the New York City Council for all their efforts. New York City buses have similar signs posted on the exterior of the buses. We believe that the stickers should be posted on the exterior of taxis as well as the interior. Exterior signs will reach out to a much bigger crowd, therefore have a greater effect in informing the public of the consequences of assaulting taxi drivers. and help change minds of those people who intend to do harm even before they get into taxis. We would like to see these stickers posted on both the interior and the exterior of the taxis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Bill Lindauer.
I'm with the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. Our executive director, Beaver Desai, wanted to be here, but she's in Atlanta for the executive council meeting of the AFL-CIO, which she's a member of the executive council. But, so I am speaking in her stead. Of course, it was the alliance that should get the great credit for pushing, conceiving of this act, and pushing the state legislature and then the city council to finally pass it. And we want to thank Rory Landsman, who, when he was in the state legislature and now with the city council, was the leader in pushing this great measure. And I want to thank the TLC, of course, which I don't have occasion to thank too often, unfortunately, but for supporting this. Now, my only objection, I guess I can support it on the outside, but it's not critical, I don't think. But of course, the inside sticker. Now, you propose a 7 by 1 inch sticker. This is 7 by 1. Kind of puny, huh? I don't think it'd be effective. I think a larger ones, like this is 3 by 4 on my right, and this is 5 by 5. I think a sticker that size, and I don't know if there's any iridescent type or paint that could be used, because we want to make sure it's visible at night, because that's when I think most of the crimes take place, and we want to make sure that passengers clearly see this in a dark cab, you know? So that's what I want to say. And I just think the implementation is important. And this is too little. And you don't ask for, you don't say what the size of the type will be or the font. And maybe that's important too. Thank you. I don't think my colleagues are here to testify.
Mr. Simmons and Mr. Akhtar?
Right. But not here, sorry.
Okay, because those were the only other remaining speakers on this rule. So I guess we can move forward to the public hearing for the next rule. Next on the agenda is rules clarifying several points regarding bases dispatching non-affiliated vehicles, which were the subject of rulemaking in November. Specifically, these rules clarify that black car bases can dispatch both black cars and luxury limousines, and that luxury limousine bases can dispatch both black cars and luxury limousines. The provisions that only livery bases can dispatch livery vehicles remain unchanged. And finally, as the commissioner said, they also provide that passengers in liveries who book their trips other than by telephone must be given the opportunity for a binding fare quote. An app booking a trip in a livery must permit a passenger to input a destination and notify passengers that doing so guarantees them a binding fare quote and also provide them a binding fare quote. These rules were published in the City Record on January 20th, 2015, with a comment deadline of February 23rd. 2 written comments were received, all of which have been provided to the commissioners. And the first speaker on this rule is Richard Thaler.
Chair Yoshi, Commissioners Council. My name is Richard Thaler. As stated in the written comments, regarding the proposed amendment to Chapter 59B17D permitting an FHV base to dispatch a trip to a non-affiliated FHV and allow the non-affiliated driver to accept the trip, the terms of the amendment should be modified to avoid conflicts with long-standing TLC rules for dispatching and franchising requiring exclusive dispatching under franchise agreements. As it stands, the affiliated base is not notified that a dispatch will be sent and could be accepted by an affiliated FHV driver, since it is the non-affiliated base that will be required to notify the passenger of the base, names, and the FHV license. Accordingly, the non-affiliated bases should be required to first notify the affiliated bases of the intention to send dispatch offers to FHVs affiliated with the bases, and it should be the affiliated base's responsibility to deny or approve the dispatch by sending the passengers the information required under the amendment before the dispatches are allowed to be sent. Since the non-affiliated bases are the dispatching bases, they should be responsible for submitting the trip data to the TLC with a copy to the affiliated bases. I neglected to add to the written comments one other issue, and that is the passenger is a passenger of the non-affiliated base. So the non-affiliated base should charge the passenger for the trip. But in compliance with the affiliation and franchise agreements, the non-affiliated base should pay the affiliated base their rate, the affiliated base's rate for that trip, and the affiliated base should pay their affiliated driver the rate for that trip. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ed Cleary.
Morning, Commissioner. Hello, my name is Ed. My name is Ed Cleary. I'm representing Avik Cabessa, the CEO of Carmel, and a board member of the Livery Roundtable with regard to the proposed rules relating to the fare quotation for livery bases and cross-class dispatch. The proposed rule, we require a livery base to provide passengers with an opportunity to receive a binding fare when receiving a dispatch from a method other than a telephone call. Our concern today is that the proposed language as written can be interpreted to require an app to provide a written notification to the customer about a binding fare quote, but not actually provide a binding fare when making a reservation outside of a telephone call. An app is just another means by which a passenger can reserve a car, and the rule that currently exists for providing a binding quote when requesting a livery service should apply to apps as well. Having said that, if the Commission still wishes to allow waiving of that requirement when it comes to apps, the waiving of the right for binding quotes should be an opportunity and not the requirement to provide the binding quote. In plain language, we believe that the app used to book livery service must come with a binding fare quotation as its primary feature. In regards to the
I'm sorry, can I
cross-class,
just ask you one question
Sure.
on this? Is the underlying, because I read I think you had a press release yesterday? Okay, and then we're getting your comments today?
yes.
Okay. What is the underlying base assumption that you're starting from is that every livery customer must provide a destination, whether it's call, app, whatever method of communication they have with the base, they must include a destination?
I think what we're really saying is that if they do give a destination, they should get a binding fare.
They must.
They must get a binding
fare quote.
Correct.
Right.
If they don't give a destination, obviously, then it would not be possible to give a binding fare.
Okay.
But we want to make it clear that as default, the binding fare should be a necessary component to if a customer puts a call through the app.
So how would, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the actual language of the rule, what is it about the actual language of the rule that you think would achieve that? Because I think under the rule it says that the app must provide an opportunity for the destination and make it clear that once you get once you give a destination, you're entitled to a binding fare quote.
I don't want to answer in too much particular on certain items here because I'm speaking on behalf of the Livery Roundtable. So I would rather someone else maybe get back to you on that answer.
Okay, because it's helpful, especially on something like this where my sense is we're actually not far apart. If we get the comments earlier and that way we can actually have productive conversation.
I understand.
Okay, thank
right.
you.
In regards to the cross-class dispatch. On the issue of allowing cross-class dispatch between black car and luxury limousine, the Commission used the fact that both luxury limousines and black car belong to the same workman's comp fund as the justification for allowing cross-dispatch. We believe it to be a gross misrepresentation to the riding public, as well as discriminatory to luxury limousines and black car bases that do not belong to the black car fund. First, not all black cars and not all luxury limousines belong to the black car fund. So using the black car fund as the criteria that will allow cross-dispatch will leave a number of vehicles left in limbo. But even more important, allowing the riding public to be served by these two classes as if they are one is misleading because these two classes do not come with the same passenger insurance coverage. While black car liability insurance coverage is of $100,000, the luxury limousine coverage is of $1 million, which is a requirement of the TLC for a luxury limousine coverage to be defined as a luxury limousine base. A passenger that books a ride with a luxury limousine base pays the luxury limousine rates that are based on the $1 million insurance coverage. But if this passenger is being dispatched a black car and is involved in an accident, the passenger is only covered up to the $300,000 insurance limit of the black car. In summary, we believe that an app used to book livery service should have the binding fare quotation as its primary feature and not as an option, and that no cross-dispatch between classes should be allowed, at least not under the very narrow scope of the driver's workman's comp fund similarity, which monopolizes the black car fund, discriminates against bases that not belong to the fund, and most importantly, places unsuspecting passengers under lower insurance coverage.
Thank you, and I just wanted to point out that, in fact, at least as to the participation in the black car fund, the rule doesn't distinguish between black cars that are members of the fund or not, so they're not discriminated against in terms of their ability to dispatch other vehicles.
Okay,
I just want to clarify that.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Tarek Mala.
Running late.
Okay, then the speaker after that is Tweeps Phillips.
I'm going to be reading Tweeps' testimony on behalf of her this morning. My name is Kristi Galvani. Good morning, Chair Joshi and Commissioners. On behalf of the Committee for Taxi Safety, we want to thank the Commission for having this hearing on the topic of cross-dispatching. The committee would like to stress that if you permit limousines and black cars to cross-dispatch, there must be very close oversight and further tightening of regulations. It is not enough for the bases to have a private agreement. It is imperative for us to know which cars are being dispatched to whom, which would require the application of a real-time trip monitor or portal into the existing TLC and black car cross-referencing data systems. With the well-capitalized and automated systems the black car bases like Uber have, this should not pose an issue. In fact, it would be simple to require a portal so you, as our regulators and consumers, have real-time access to important information when, for example, property is lost or an accident occurs. In recent news stories have provided that Uber has been quick to say that they are not responsible when accidents occur, claiming that they are a technology app, not a transportation company. Of course, we know that the distinction is made only when it suits their needs at a given time. This leaves the consumer at a great disadvantage. Additionally, not all black car services are the same. Different vehicles may be utilized by different bases. Different levels of service may be both expected and provided. Passengers should not be uniformed as to changes in vehicles or which base is actually dispatching to, passengers should not be uninformed as to changes in vehicles or which base is actually dispatching to them. When consent to cross-dispatch is requested from a passenger, the passenger should be informed as to these basic facts before making a decision to accept the cross-base dispatch. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify on the rules before you today.
Thank you. The next speaker, I believe, is Eugene Evans. No. The next speaker is Michael R Benitez.
Morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Michael R Benitez. I'll be reading this on behalf of Ira Goldstein and on behalf of the Black Car Assistance Corporation and the New York Black Car Operators Injury Compensation Fund Incorporated. I want to thank the TLC for this opportunity to comment on the proposed amendments to the for-hire dispatch rules and allow black car bases and luxury limo bases to cross-dispatch each other's categories vehicles. We agree and support the proposed amendments on the same basis of the TLC's legal analysis in the statement of basis and purpose for the proposed rules, in that because of the similar regulations that govern black cars and luxury limousines, and the fact that their drivers are covered by the same workers' compensation scheme. Black car bases and luxury limousine bases should be allowed to dispatch each other's vehicles. In fact, today's proposed rules properly reflect conversations with the TLC staff prior to the rules promulgated by the TLC in November of 2014. We'd like to thank Chairwoman Joshi and General Counsel Christopher Wilson for taking prompt action when this oversight was brought to their attention. Finally, there were some BCAC members that were concerned that the rules as approved in November 2014 did not sufficiently shift liability to the dispatching base from the affiliate base. With the amendments that allow vehicle to be dispatched by multiple bases, the TLC's legal department responded promptly with a letter clarifying that the liability in all instances of a vehicle being dispatched in violation of TLC rules would lie with the dispatching base. Attached to my testimony is a copy of the Assistant General Counsel, Ryan, I'm going to mispronounce his name, Wantaja's February 18th, 2015 letter clarifying this situation. On behalf of the BCAC and the Black Car Fund, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I'll call again for Mr. Mala. Is he here? Okay. I think we'll move on then to the next rule hearing. And the last hearing, the last set of rules today are proposed rules that would require that roof lights in Green Street Hail liveries be unlit whenever the taximeter is detached. These rules are intended to help passengers more clearly identify vehicles available for service. These rules were published in the City Record on January 20th, 2015, with a comment deadline of February 23rd. 2 written comments were received, all of which were provided to the commissioners. We have one speaker for this rule, Mr. Arrington Sell.
Good morning, Commissioners, once again. My name is Arrington Sell. Some time ago, it had come to our attention that some SHL drivers had figured out a way to bypass the geofencing enforcement. Allow me to acknowledge and appreciate the efforts of TLC and its staff in coordinating the path to the solution, and fully supports the amendments to the applicable TLC rules, which will stop SHL drivers from being able to put their roof lights on while in Manhattan exclusionary zone by detaching the meter from its bracket in order to bypass the geofencing enforcement. However, we believe that in order to make sure that an SHL roof light is giving the correct message in all hail exclusionary zones, more needs to be done. SHL hail exclusionary zone is extended beyond Manhattan and includes the airports. While SHLs are permitted to pick up at the airports, they are limited to picking up passengers on prearranged calls only. And since a lit roof light signals availability to hail passengers, they do not need to have their roof lights on at the airports. The law requires that SHL roof lights are turned off when occupied with passengers destined for airports and when they are on their way to airports to answer prearranged call. However, nothing prevents the roof light from coming on after the SHL driver drops passengers off at the airport. Since current structure of the geofencing enforcement prevents it from being applied at the airports, we would like to see the proposed changes to the rules which govern the operation of SHL roof lights include an additional change which will require all unoccupied SHL drivers to dim their roof lights after dropping passengers off at the airports. This would ensure that all unoccupied SHL roof lights get turned off in all hail exclusionary zones. Thank you. My testimony reflects my comments that was sent to you, Commissioner, earlier. And apparently, maybe we do have time to have a little conversation on this. If we can do something.
We're not having the vote today, so we've got 30 days until we'll probably vote on this, so. if you
Okay.
can Follow up, we're available.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and let me note for the record that Commissioner Polanco joined the meeting at 10:40 a.m. And I think that's all. And I think that concludes the hearing, since we don't have a quorum.
Ends at 10:45.